I am Black business. From the moment I wake until the time I sleep. Yes, I am Black business. I am Black business. Tell me, are you Black business? I am Black business. Do you support Black businesses? Listen, I support Black business because I am Black business. Black Business Expo, one of the largest business showcases in the history of Black business in the world. The world! Sign up today at www.blackbusinessexpousa.com or call 919-308-9090. I am Black business.
Good afternoon, business owners, entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and corporations. Welcome to the Black Business Network. My name is Tamisha Thomas from Too Much TV. I am your business moderator for this afternoon on the Black Business Network. The Black Business Network is a 24-hour business network showcasing Black businesses, business owners, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders worldwide. We have speakers from North Carolina, London, Singapore, Africa, Japan, and cities all over the United States. The Black Business Network is a global community sharing its business knowledge to empower, inspire, and educate businesses about business. Our next speaker is Kevin Cadette of Black Angels Miami. Kevin Cadette is the executive director of Black Angels Miami. He's a London-born startup industry veteran and technology leader who is determined to change the landscape of tech and investing in Miami. His organization, Black Angels Miami, aims to connect Black investors to promising minority-owned startups, specifically matching tech startups with venture capitalists. I present to you Kevin Cadette. Unmute, Kevin.
That would help.
How are you today?
I am well. Good afternoon.
Well, thank you for joining us today on the Black Business Network. Genius is coming, and I'll see you on the other side.
Hello, we'll be doing a fireside chat today with Kevin. So thank you very much for the introduction, Miss Tamisha. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Kevin, how are you this morning or afternoon, I should say?
Good afternoon. I'm doing great. Do you hear the lawnmower in the background?
I only can hear you.
All right. So the technology is working.
Yes. As well.
I am Black business. From the moment I wake until the time I sleep. Yes, I am Black business. I am Black business. Tell me, are you Black business? I am Black business. Do you support Black businesses? Listen, I support Black business because I am Black business. Black Business Expo, one of the largest business showcases in the history of Black business in the world. The world! Sign up today at www.blackbusinessexpousa.com or call 919-308-9090. I am Black business.
We're back with Kevin Cadette. Kevin, tell us, you're in London. You're from London?
I'm from London, but I live in Miami.
Okay, so how was the transition from London to Miami?
Well, I've been in the States since high school. So, I lived in the Northeast for a really long time. So coming to Miami and growing up in England, this is like paradise, palm trees, warm weather, love it.
And you're doing the work. So you're on the Black Business Network, connecting Black businesses to investors.
Yes. So we have, we really started because we saw that the technology environment in Miami was on the rise. And we didn't have the Black investors we thought we should have. There's plenty of accredited individuals that don't have access to invest in tech startups. So we wanted to create an on-ramp to enable Black investors to be exposed to great technology companies.
Oh, wow. Okay. So what does this process look like? Are you having pitch competitions, or how is that working in
Yeah.
infrastructure?
So our members are the investors. We range from those that invest, it seems like every other week, to those that may invest only once a month. There's no expectation of investing, so it's really easy to get engaged. We're not saying you have to join and have to invest. So we have all of those members. We're a nonprofit, and then we have companies apply to us through our website, and we select a number of them to pitch every other month, and the investors take a look, and hopefully we can make the right connections.
Okay, Grant, I'm going to turn this over to you.
Oh, no, thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you. Get everything started, Tamisha and Kevin, as we are getting to our conversation, because this is so important. One of the big stumbling blocks in the world of Black entrepreneurship, small business owners, is access to capital. This is something that Black Angels Miami looks to solve with their particular service. So, question number one, Kevin, and I know this to be true. The one thing you talked about in a former podcast that we were on, you first talked about the relationships, that you can have the technical knowledge, you can have a lot of experiences. However, if you don't have the right relationships in the financial markets that you're looking to gain a capital investment of, can you talk to us a little bit more about why that is an important step that we must accomplish?
Yeah, it's real. I'll make an analogy. You could be the smartest, most educated person there is, the perfect person for a specific job. But if you don't know how to apply for that job, or even apply for that job and put forth the right resume, you'll never get that job, right? So if you don't know how to approach raising capital, and you have the best idea in the world, you may have the expertise to actually pull it off, from the technology to the business to marketing, you could be perfect across the board. But if you don't know how to go about getting capital, which is a whole nother ball game, you're never going to get it. So how do we, solve that knowledge gap? And for us specifically, we're looking at high tech, high growth um, companies. So venture capital is not really looking at brick and mortar businesses. It's really looking for things that will really grow. So, unfortunately, as in a lot of businesses, high tech businesses, doesn't matter if it's $1 billion company or a tiny company, they won't always work out, right? That's just the nature of business. But if you're looking at early stage tech companies and you're an investor, if you understand that many won't work out, if you're going to have a portfolio of investments, each company has to be able to be big enough to warrant investing in it. So if I get a 1x return on one company, but I invest in 3 companies and 2 fail, then I've overall lost money.
Mhm.
Right? So if you invest in a number of companies, they have to be big.
Let me ask you this. When you talk about the valuation of a company or a business, because as an angel investor, obviously you're looking at it from a return on investment, and some of them are short term, some are long term, some are actually strategic partners. When you look at valuation, how do you determine what that value is going to be? Or what are some of the things that specifically Black entrepreneurs need to really hone in on so that they will be attractive to an angel investor?
Yeah, that's a good question. And in light of what's happened over the last number of months, evaluations have plummeted. Right. So 2021, money was flowing into the industry. Evaluations are really high. At that point, because the money was flowing, people weren't worried about evaluations, right? People the valuations were simply high. Now, I think we've come down to more of a reality. Evaluations at the earliest stages, I wouldn't, as an entrepreneur, I wouldn't worry too much about it. I'm only saying that because you have to get a lot of things in place before you start having evaluations conversations. When you're having that conversation, you're in a really good place, right? Because somebody wants to invest in you. There's so many things that have to happen before someone says, what your evaluation is. So yeah, there's many things that have to happen before you get there.
Let me ask you this, because I know when your business, you told me you're the glue. You're the glue between the angel investor and then the potential business, someone who needs an infusement of capital. What are you looking for? Like, you've got to make an evaluation yourself between these two entities, because you're the relationship between those two. What are you specifically looking for, let's say, in a business, Black entrepreneurship, SMB startup? Maybe they're a startup at this point, but they're starting to get things going. What are things that they need to have in place before you would make an introduction?
Yeah. So we'll start with the very, very basics. They have to have a plan, right? and not just the back of the envelope plan. You really need it fleshed out. So you have to understand the market, being able to actually have numbers to back up, your thesis in the market, what the addressable market is to your business. Have a pro forma, so like a financial model going out multiple years, and then a go-to-market strategy to actually back up the numbers in that pro forma. So you really have to have structure around what you're trying to do. And then the actual individual, at the end of the day, you're investing in a person, because there isn't a big company. You're investing in an individual who you believe will be able to execute on their vision, right? Because there is no company. There's that person that's going to do it all. So you're looking for a really strong thesis, and ideally some experience of that individual in that arena. So, beyond the business, you've got to believe that that person knows the arena they're going to be working in and has experience and can really talk to it and attract individuals to work with them to go forward.
This is so interesting, because I've seen a lot of different businesses that I've worked with before. And, a lot of them are bootstrapping their way through things. What does that mean? That means they're using their own money. Right?
Absolutely.
And they haven't got to a point where they can either attract either just your traditional investment from a bank or something to that effect. Help us understand the difference between your traditional lenders, loans, and then what angel investors, and then of course the venture capitalists, because they're all different.
They are all different. So you mentioned bootstrapping, and that's, for everyone, that's taking the money out of your own pocket and strapping up your boots, doing them tight, and working hard on your own dime to make things happen. And I absolutely recommend for everyone, doesn't matter how great an idea you have, to take it as far as you possibly can without having to raise capital from, angels or any type of institution. And ideally, after bootstrapping, you'll have friends and family that can invest in you. And that point is where we have the biggest challenge. Because so many of us don't have the rich uncle or aunt you tap on the shoulders, like, I have a great idea, can you invest in me, lend me money, help me get from A to B. That's not as prevalent in our community. So you go from bootstrapping, and then so much of the time there's a gap, and that's when people turn to angels or other types of money. Early on in the business, before there is a business which is with revenue, you're not going to get a loan, right? The banks aren't going to touch you because you're an idea. You're not a business. It's too risky. Venture capital really comes later. There is more early stage venture capital, but it's really difficult to get that money really early on. You would need a really strong thesis, a really great idea, and probably prior exit. So you've actually done it before. They're just not coming that early unless it's really, really strong. So the angel space, angels are really individuals who are investing by themselves, but ideally fill this gap when you're really early on. And you want to, and something you mentioned before is relationships. When you're going to those angels, it's a longer road because they don't know you. But that doesn't mean they don't want to get to know you. But you've got to have all those things I said prior in place. And then it's a conversation. It could be mentoring that ultimately turns into an investment.
Wow. See, there's a lot that you got to think through. Not only you have your business plan, as you talked about, you have your business plan, strategic goals, but you have to understand your financial modeling metrics that you can actually put on paper, because you're going to have that ultimate day. Everybody, a lot of people are familiar with Shark Tank, right? You have I want to have my Shark Tank moment when you actually get in front of a group of investors and pitch your idea. And it's got to attract people to a point where they want to have a further conversation. I know you do these pitch nights. I don't know if they're weekly, monthly, quarterly, but you do these things. So you see a lot of pitches from tech groups and things like that. What do you see? Like, if you had to give advice to our group right now, maybe they were working on their pitch deck or they don't even know what that is. What advice would you give that group?
The more you pitch, the more feedback you get, the stronger it's going to be. If you can imagine interviewing for a job, the more times you do it, the more questions you'll get. A lot of time you're going to get the same questions, especially with a business. If you're not addressing part of the business, you're going to get that question over and over and over again. You're not going to be able to avoid it. So you want to get as much feedback as possible. There are a lot of organizations, be it accelerator or incubator, or especially in cities, that help small businesses, tech businesses, help them round out what they're doing, give them marketing advice, give them pitch advice. But don't be afraid to share what you're doing and get that feedback. It's if you don't put it out there, you're not going to be able to get the feedback you need to actually refine your pitch and give it its best shot.
Now, are you taking when you take on a client, and I guess you work on both sides of the ball, whether it's an angel investor or not, what does that look like? Are you like you would do some advisory with that group, like you would say, hey, pitch to me. I want to see what you've got. Let's see where you're at. And then will people then take that feedback and start to evolve their business plan, evolve their strategic vision so they can get alignment for that investor? Because you're not going to bring them in front of the investor unless they're ready. Is that right?
Oh yeah, I've that's probably at least half of my time. I have talked to companies where I've said what they've presented to me on paper. There was a period earlier on in our organization, and we started right before the pandemic, where I wanted to talk to every single company which applied. Whether I liked what they presented or not, I was going to talk to them. So for 2 weeks, back to back, every day, I talked to every company. And I looked at one and I said, I don't believe anything I'm reading here. This is smoke and mirrors. This isn't real. And then I had a meeting with this company. 5 minutes into the conversation, I said, stop. You're telling me this is real? Like, you have built a MVP, which is a minimal viable product. You've got a product here. This is actually real. And then we had a really productive conversation. Then 10 minutes later, I said, burn everything you've written so far. We're going to start over. I love what you're doing, but your one pager, you're not going to get a meeting. Ultimately, they did raise capital, but it was a long road, and they were receptive to the feedback. That's an extreme case, but I give everyone my honest feedback. I'm Black Angels Miami is a nonprofit. I'm not part of the transaction. I just want the best for the investors and for the entrepreneurs. So the founders out there that I talk to, you ask them, I want to tell them exactly what I think. And I think they should get as much good feedback as possible, because not everybody will look at everything from the same perspective. But ultimately, that pitch deck is a living document, right? It will evolve. Time will go by. You will progress in your company. You will have better things ways to represent what you're doing. And you will learn more about your industry, and you'll want to reflect that in your documentation. So if you're not, I get, it's a very humbling thing. Mm-hmm. It's very humbling. And I tell people, I'm not telling you this because I try to be mean. I just telling you exactly what I think. And, take something and pivot it, and this is a better way to present it, or drop this because it's only going to hurt you, even though it's more information. When you're presenting, ultimately, just as you mentioned Shark Tank before, every meeting you're trying to get to the next meeting. You're not going to have one meeting, you have to sell them on everything, and you don't have long enough to sell them on everything, but you should give enough to intrigue an investor that they want to learn more. So that pitch may only be 2 minutes, but give them your best 2 minutes so they want to have the next conversation, and ultimately you go down that path and end up raising capital. And on top of that person you're talking to, angels typically invest in what they know, right? So if I know pharmaceuticals, or if I know e-commerce, or whatever industry it is, I may know that really well and be comfortable investing in it. But if I see something which I really like, and an individual I really like, I can say, you know what, I don't really know this, but I know who does, right? So never be so many times relationships, who you present to first may not be the person that invests in you. It may be 20 people down the line, or it may be the second person. But we've had companies pitch to our group, and we try and keep it as open as possible to expose those founders to as many investors as possible. But ultimately, it may be 4 connections down the line, and that person invests in the company. I wasn't in Miami once, and I was at a meeting, and someone turned around and said, "Hey, I invested in a company that pitched you." And I said, "Who on earth are you?" Like, I had no idea who they were. They lived in Philadelphia. I was like, "How on earth did the company get to you from Miami to Philadelphia?" Well, we're pitching via Zoom for one, so you could be anywhere. And then, well, this person saw it, this person. I'm like, yes. And they gave it to the next person, the next person, and me. And I liked it. And they invested. So every conversation is an opportunity to share with what you're doing. And you don't know where it's going to end up. And you don't know who you're talking to. Investors or wealthy individuals don't walk around with a cap saying, "I'm wealthy and I'm ready to invest." You just don't know who is in a position to help you. And it could simply be a relationship. You could say, "Grant, I know I have a great pharmaceutical company." And Grant turns around and says, "I know someone who's a pharmaceutical expert who's looking for the next deal." And they pass it along. So it's a small world, but if you don't get out into it, nothing's going to happen.
You got to get out there. You got to get in the field. You got to pitch your idea, but have it ready. Now, the other side of that equation is the investor themselves. You pride yourself on having a group of entrepreneurs, or I should say investors, who are minority, they're African American, they're on that side of the ball. Because you said one thing, I remember during our interview, a few months back, those relationships are so important, but people do business with people that they're comfortable with and that they can have some natural attraction with. You've put together a group of people that you have relationships with. Help us understand what they're looking for on their side of the ball. What's it like after you pitch and this conversation is going on with these investors, and what are their concerns about the situation?
Yeah, it's interesting because it's a diverse group of investors. So again, you have people who have never invested, never invested in a tech company, to those who have had an IPO and been in tech for their whole career, who are very comfortable investing. I think that's one of the values when you join a group, so you can lean on other people's expertise. Um, and remember, they're individuals. So, once in a while you can have someone say, has anybody else invested in this company? Like they don't know that company very well, but very interested to see who else has invested. So I do like to say that checks follow checks. It's the first check, which is the most difficult one. But then the same individual will see something, it's like, I get it, I like that company, and they write a check. And then I'm in shock. But remember, it's so much of the time, angels can do, they're individuals, they can do whatever they like.
Right.
So we have, people with decades and decades of expertise that, sometimes I'm having a conversation and I'm like, I should be recording this because this should literally be a class. Like this 20 minutes of what they're saying, they've been so eloquent. They've laid out the challenges of the company, and this should be recorded. So I'm really blessed to be in the middle of a lot of great conversations.
Let me ask you this also. The deal, because, okay, let's say you've got someone who's interested. I'm interested in investing in you here. I'm ready to write a check to a company. What does the deal look like? Commonly, what is the structure, the payback? What do you need to be aware of when you're entering into a contractual agreement with an angel investor? What do those deals really look like?
Well, this is a series of podcasts right here. There's deals can be constituted in a number of ways. But if you take a step back, ultimately, you're investing in a company hoping there will be an exit, right? So you want to have that company basically, when I say exit, have a liquidity event, i.e. is sold, is acquired. Somehow all of the owners of that company are compensated for that company. If it's going to be a lifestyle, if you're trying to start a business and own that business and be something you run indefinitely, you're not looking for venture capital, right? Because how would they get a return? They're not looking for part of your revenue for the next 20 years. They're looking for an exit in 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years where they get a multiple of their money back. So all of these deals ultimately end up in the investors owning equity in your company. Now that can happen in a number of ways. So at one extreme, there's convertible debt, where you're given a loan to a business, which ultimately will be converted into equity when more money is invested into the company. That's very common very early on. It protects the investor. So if you don't go on to raise more capital, then that company will owe the investor money, which will be paid back with interest. There's straight equity deals. You're paying, based on the evaluation of the company, you're giving the company X dollars and you're going to own X percent. And then there's structures where you give the company money based on getting a discount on future raising. So if I give you $100,000 now, you're going to give me a discount of 20% when you raise more money. So when you raise more money, my 100,000 is now 120,000. right? I'm getting more equity. So there's as I said, we could have a whole series of different of discussions about how the actual contract or relationship comes together. But that's a great conversation to have, because you're already past all the due diligence, and someone's really interested in making a deal.
These are discussions you need to have. You have to do some stepping out into the future, understanding what these conversations are going to be like in the future state, and get your present state aligned to begin to have these future discussions. Because you hear time and time again, you can't, you just don't have the capital, you're not doing this and that. Even though you have to ultimately be running your business, you have to show that it's valuable, that it's scalable, that it has opportunity to have that return on investment that people are looking for within a timely manner. You talked about some things that I thought was, man, it was such enlightening. You have to understand this from an idea perspective. You had an idea years ago, because you went to a prestigious business school. You have great pedigree, right? And you had this great idea that, hey, you know what? I'm going to refurbish computers. I'm going to refurbish old equipment, and I'm going to refurbish them, put it back together, and put them back out to market. Great idea, right? Bad timing because people weren't doing it. Talk about that for a moment.
Yeah, it's a lot of things have to line up for a business to take off, right? It's the timing of the market and what's happening overall can affect the business. So undergrad, we had this great, this is 25 years ago. Ugh, aging myself. And it was the first time I pitched the Angels, and they loved the pitch. We got an A, everything's great. But it was a new market. They didn't see it. How many people thought of how many people thought of Uber before Uber came to fruition? And when Uber started, I was like, I'm not getting a stranger's car. Now I'm the first to click, click, click. Where's that stranger so I can jump in their car and take me from A to B? Business school, I thought that everyone would be using their phones in their idle time. No brainer, right?
Right.
I didn't. I started a company of a classmate. This is what we were going to do. I didn't take a job right out of business school. We're going to start a tech company. The only problem is the iPhone hadn't come out yet.
Yeah.
We were 3 years too early. So a thesis and an idea, so many things have to align. Like the market has to be ready and receptive for that idea. Sometimes I think, if I was given the opportunity to pursue that company back out of business school, that I would have fallen into the iPhone, right?
Yeah.
So much of the time we're not given the opportunity to fail because we don't have that friends and family to support us, that believe in us, and give us enough capital to take multiple shots at being an entrepreneur. Because if you ask entrepreneurs, so much of the time the first company doesn't work out. And so much of the time we don't have the opportunity to do it multiple times. That's a whole nother podcast right there. I'm just getting you ideas for podcasts, Grant.
All right. No,
I'll flesh out a whole year for you.
Ongoing conversation and never end. But we have to have, especially as entrepreneurs, first of all, you have to be comfortable failing. I've talked to so many different people like, hey, yeah, you see me doing well now. You see me, running a 7-8 figure company, but you didn't see me when I failed with 10 other companies, or when I was on my way and then hit these roadblocks that I could not maneuver, but I didn't give up. I had to persevere. I had to show resilience. I had to get back up after my idea, my baby, was called ugly over and over and over again. Like, no, my baby's beautiful. And I'm going to find someone else who sees the beauty in my baby as well, even if I've got to get out here and walk these roads. But if you really do the research on a lot of people, especially those people that are angel investors, meaning when you say angel investors, these are business people that have now got to a point where they have money that they now want to invest So again, do you want to grow, more opportunities? This is a great position to be in, but you really need to hone in on their story. How did you get to where you're at? How many battles did you have to win in order to finally get to where you're at? Right.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the biggest of companies. It doesn't matter if it's Amazon or Uber, or how many times did that founder have to pitch? How many times did the door get thrown in your face, or they said it's not going to work? I mean, how many people would have given up after the 100th time you've had a meeting? But that's literally what it's going to have to take, unless you're really lucky to get money early. And a lot of times founders need to step back and think about how that investor sees the landscape. Every founder thinks their idea is the best idea in the world, and they should. But what they've got to understand is an investor sees all of these ideas, and for any which reason they can say no to an idea. It could be the littlest thing. To a certain extent, you're looking for a reason to say no.
Mm-hmm.
It's if you imagine looking through resumes and it could be a typo. It could be the perfect person in the job, and it's like, how could they let this out? And it could have been an honest mistake, and it's like a no. Or you don't like how their marketing strategy is, or it could be anything. It could be I just don't know this industry, so I'm going to say no. Or for some reason, I don't like that founder because I didn't like the shoes they bought. I mean, people are individuals, and they're going to make their decisions as individuals. But at the end of the day, you've got to be comfortable with the no's to get to the yes.
Absolutely. I want to ask you one more question as we get to the top of the hour. And this is more about Kevin Cadette. It's more about Black Angels Miami. Why would someone want to choose you as opposed to all the other choices they could make? We're talking to a worldwide audience right now. There's people out there like, hey, this is interesting. I can get access to capital, in this tech space and get people to invest in. But why would I want to choose Kevin Cadette and Black Angels Miami to take me to that next level?
Yeah. If you want to get as much exposure to as many people who can possibly invest in you as possible. We're a nonprofit. We're not part of the transaction. Our only goal is to make those connections between our members and great investments. So you have nothing to lose. We have great investors on our side of the table, and they want to invest. It's basically a safe place. The only downside is that only so many companies can pitch, but I am absolutely willing to talk to everyone. The only downside is that we only have so much time in a day. And the only downside, I don't have my own fund, so I can't write the checks myself, which I would love to have. Because I see, one of the frustrations of life is I see so many great founders. I'm like, this idea is a killer. But I'm not investing directly. I'm making the connection. So Black Angels Miami is not investing. So we're an absolutely honest broker. We're not we're a nonprofit. We're not part of the transaction at all. We're just trying to do good for the ecosystem.
That says a lot, because trust is huge. And if you can trust what's going on, especially in these kinds of deals, you might have a great idea. The last thing you want to have happen is someone takes your intellectual property and then takes that idea and runs with it somewhere else and become successful, right? And I know some of the things that you do is you help people through, like, hey, you've got to trademark that. You've got to get copyrights that. You got to start looking at these things from the legal lens, not just the financial lens. So I appreciate everything that you are doing there at Black Angels Miami.
Thank you.
Oh, she's on mute.
Tanisha's turned to be on mute. It's not me. I'm not the only one.
Yes, this is wonderful listening in the background, hearing what's going on in Miami, because we are in Raleigh, the Silicon Valley of the East. This goes on all the time. And a lot of times I'm in these rooms and I'm not seeing Black investors. So I love to see this, Kevin. Thank you, Grant. Genius is coming, and we will see you on the other side.
Five-Star BDM, Brand Development Masters, is a professional consulting and advisory group keenly focused on business development services for the small to mid-sized business and entrepreneurs. Although every business is unique, they often share business development challenges that can be addressed through smart branding. Services include process improvement and operations, digital strategy and transformation, business intelligence, digital marketing, and personal branding. Our business and personal branding company has helped a number of professionals and organizations to optimize and grow. This results in more business, more opportunities, better reach, positive outcomes. Visit www.fivestarbdm.com today to learn more.